Greetings of salutations and peace. You are now in tune on the one, the force itself. At this time, we call it the Holy Master Blaster Javan. Pakistan's national language is Urdu, and its official language is English. The country is also home to several regional languages, including Punjabi, Pashto Sindhi, Balochi, Kashmiri, Brahui, Shina, Balti, Khowar, Dhatki, Marwari, Wakhi, and andBurushaski. Most of the Pakistani language belong to the Indo-Iranian group of the Indo-European language families, but it is important for us to note that the national language of the Pakistani people is Urdu. There is information circulating by one Mr. Guthrie of the Dhamma Foundation, who has brought forth to the public that Dr. Farad Muhammad's origin is India, not Mecca. In the year 2011, after 1 year studying under Abdur Rahim, known in history books as Anas Luqman, the first man asked by the Nation of Islam via Minister Joseph to kill Malcolm X, was my teacher, Abdul Luqman Rahim. Under that tutelage, which lasted to the year 2014 in December, time of his death, I was interviewed by Sharif Nasir, the filmmaker who published the movie The Lost Found, and who is now doing a documentary on the assassination of Malcolm X. Mr. Sharif Nasir came to Northern California to interview me, seeking out the information that I was given from my teacher, Abdur Luqman Rahim, also known as Anas Luqman. They wanted to know how Malcolm X got into China to speak to Mao Zedong. So the State Department is still interested in the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X, but through my research and my studies, I learned the origin of Master Farad, and it concurs with the information brought forth by Mr. Guthrie of the Dhamma Foundation. This information was esoterically revealed through the mystic Farad, i.e. through Malcolm X. The name Malik Shabazz, as we have found through Mr. Guthrie's work, Shabazz, he says, is an Indian name. It's actually a Pakistani name, a name of the mystics, the Dervish or the Sufis, the sect of Khowar. So in my 3 videos in a series called where we talk about Saint Malcolm, we are the Brotherhood of Saint Malcolm, the inner circle, the ones that has the inner information, the why and how, etc. of the circumstances surrounding the death of Malcolm X. There are still books being written on Malcolm X. One of the closest confidants of Malcolm X, one of the ones that are still living, Brother Abdullah Razak in New York, whom I have interviewed, I have talked with extensively. He is writing a book, and he sought me out also for information concerning Abdul Rahim or Ital Iman, etc. So all the information is in now, and we're going to let you listen to these videos, these 3 videos that I did back in the year 2011 that backs up the work of Mr. Guthrie. Again, you are now in tune. On the one, the force itself at this time he called the Master Blaster Gem. This could be the most important information of our time, but my point is that the Rastafari movement is very significant, and it runs parallel to the Nation of Islam. I am your brother, the independent journalist. Ital Iman I was the only independent journalist to cover the Beltway sniper trial in the year 2003. My coverage of the Beltway sniper trial was picked up by the Washington Post. That is to reveal my credibility. You're now in tune. On the one, the force itself. At this time we call it the Master Blaster Gem. Yes, I am.
Okay, this is recording. Can you see from there that it's recording?
Yes.
Good.
English lesson number C1, lines 3 and 37 say that W.D. Farad's uncle was brought over here 379 years ago. 379 years ago tells us that this lesson was written in the year 1934. We know that because 1934 subtract 379 equals the year 1555, the year of Sir John Hawkins. So we know that English lesson number C1, after it talks about the 9,000 miles by water, it ends by saying, why didn't their own people come and get them? And then it says, because their own people did not know they were here. When did their own people know that they were here? Approximately 60 years ago. So 60 years ago. 60 years prior to this lesson, 1934, 60 years prior to that, in the year 1873, approximately 60 years prior, in the year 1873, a man named Mahatma Phule wrote the book Slavery, in which he announced to the masses of India that the so-called Negro had been captured and held as slaves here in America. This book, Slavery, swept across the Indian subcontinent, and it let the people know that the so-called Negro had been captured and held as slaves here in America. The question, when did their own people know that they were here? And the answer, approximately 60 years ago. Mahatma Phule wrote the book approximately 60 years before, and it was the book that let the people of India know that black people were being held as slaves in America, in this country, America. Mahatma Phule was later called the Booker T. Washington of India. That's how much the poorer people of India identified with our plight here in this country. Mahatma Phule dedicated his book Slavery to those in America who had fought against so-called Negro slavery. He said that it was his desire that the people of India might take our example as a guide in the freeing of the slave castes of India. So it was through the work of Mahatma Phule that they found out that we were here, and this event occurred in India, and it's the event which W.D. Farad is referring to in line number 36 of English lesson number C1. In 2010, President Obama was presented a copy of Mahatma Phule's book Slavery, at which time he said that he was deeply touched. We too were presented a copy of this book, Slavery, by representatives of the Dalit community in India, and we too are deeply touched. It's part of our tradition, and for all of those who study the teachings of W.D. Farad, it's part of your tradition too. Lastly, in part one, we said that there was no evidence that W.D. Farad wrote in Arabic. We said that any authentic samples of handwriting by W.D. Farad would have to be in either English or Urdu, or one of the other scripts of India. Well, here's a photograph of an identification card, one of many W.D. Farad issued to his students. This particular card was issued to Annie Louise Yassin. In the upper left corner of the cards, W.D. Farad wrote the name of the students, just as he had done on all the other cards. He wrote her name, Annie Louise Yassin. Notice that the IE or the Y in the name Annie is written with the Urdu letter Beri Yi. This is an Urdu letter. Urdu has 38 letters, while Arabic has 28 letters. So there are letters in Urdu that do not appear in Arabic. If a person is writing in Urdu, it's going to have letters that are Urdu letters. This letter shown here, when compared against the Arabic alphabet, anyone can see that this is not Arabic. It's showing up here in this corner here, it shows one of the 10 letters which Urdu uses and which Arabic does not use. This can be seen and discerned by any person. You can just look at it and look up the Arabic letters and try and find a letter that looks like this. This is an Urdu letter. Anyone may choose to disagree with W.D. Farad, but according to his own words, which he wrote, he's saying that he's writing in Urdu, not in Arabic. And Urdu was the language of India during the time of this writing. So this again shows that W.D. Farad comes from India. That was the issue we were looking at in part one. Those are a few of the things I wanted to share before we get into part two. Now, in this episode, we're looking at the question, did W.D. Farad teach Islam or did W.D. Farad teach Buddhism?
The Brotherhood of St. Malcolm. What I say here in this video is for your careful study. Many will not get it, but for the few who do, I ask you to act upon this information. Share it with others. Share it with others you feel will benefit, might be able to support this effort. Paying homage to our ancestors, heroes and sheroes, we will be known as the Brotherhood of St. Malcolm. This is of the return of Planet X. Pure lyric is he, in rays of sun. All the flowers know it, and are laughing. He is the rose who grew out of concrete. He took the vow of poverty. He was born among chaos, raised to manhood in a nation of hell. He is true thug. He is Blackstone Nation. He made the Hajj. He is peace. He is revolution. He is our bright and shining prince, St. Malcolm. Welcome, O ones of the One. This is salutations of peace to the believers. St. Malcolm was a believer. He died for the liberation of me and you. Like you, he was born in darkness, grew to be a light in that darkness. You perceived it not. Farrakhan knew him to be that light, and all around him could see that light about them the jealous men lusted to be. Babylon knew him to be the Messiah. They conspired to kill him because he, like us, believed in an idea. Freedom of the people by any means necessary. The saint was not selfish, not like Muhammad Ali, but true champion of the people, not a puppet of those who handled him, but a believer of the spirit of truth, which did come through them. Out of chaos, a liberator was born. When the story of the Nation of Islam is told, St. Malcolm is the light. He is the overwhelming event. Like Khalid, he is the one turning on the light. He is the question mark still in our minds. He is truly builder of the nation. He is the true character of this drama. He was one without physical motivation, true messenger of Elijah who spoke of the wheel. A concept is real when all the elements fuse into one great synthesis. There is no longer any contradiction here at the top. All the truth in this drama has become divine. The Rastafari reveals the oneness. All is one. From the tiniest atom to the largest star is this truth. You may call it God. You are now in tune on the one, the force itself. This time we call it the Master Blaster Jamming. This is the organization of African unity, for it is written in a place for us to see, no longer hidden in the shadows. For when two or more gather in the name of truth, power will be in their midst. Which is truth? Truth is power. And we will find that it is written that when the children of Israel, i.e. the light, Sirs and Nibiru, cried out in unity, the gods remembered the covenant. This is the covenant of the consensus. This is the half that's never been told. This is likened to the stories of old. Malik el-Shabazz, the order of Quarlandria, Sufi, he took the vow of poverty to know and propagate truth. He became Shabazz Qalanda. A Shabazz is a saint whose actions are believed to be directly commanded by God and are based on love and devotion to God. This is an elite group of Sufis, i.e., this is the Rastafari Ital Iman I. You are now in tune. On the one, the force itself, at this time we call it the Master Blaster Jamming. The current state of the human mind is due to government programming. You are now in tune. On the one, the force itself, at this time we call it the Master Blaster Jamming. This has been part one. Stay tuned for part two of this discourse. This is the Rastafari Ital Iman I. You are now in tune. On the one, the force itself, at this time we call it the Master Blaster Jamming. The current state of the human mind is due to government programming. The so-called revolution has taken many turns since chattel slavery. From the gut feelings of Nat Turner, who said, fuck it, I just can't take it anymore. Even he had a plan. And as always, there is betrayal. And like 4th of July fireworks, momentum fizzles out. So in the beginning, we see the extreme. Our oral tradition tells us that many of the persons with Nat Turner ran for cover of the swamps and traveled to the Carolinas, where they settled there, are descendants there today. I know one personally who grew to be a close confidant to the late revolutionary Malcolm X. So we see the struggle continues. Even from the time Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad, the Sojourner Truth, we have used signs, we have used codes along the way to freedom. Celestial navigation was always a tool. We followed the North Star, used codes like follow the drinking gourd. So we had to be aware of these codes. In the esoteric lore of the past, the travelers were like Moses endeavoring the route to the promised land, but never making it. It was his brother Aaron, if we are to understand our plight, who made it into the promised land. Aaron represents us in our time, who through time has accumulated more experience, gained more knowledge. We understand the terrain much better now. We have a bird's eye view. For in the 60s, the so-called revolutionaries used the Chinese and Japanese models, and the Trojan horse they were building fell apart with time. The manifesto and treatises of Mao Zedong were used. Ones today who have studied and understood the models of the past know that the Nation of Islam, one of the greatest models of the black nationalism, was infiltrated by Japanese factions. The main culprit being Satakata Takahashi. This point was the first interjection of poison into the pure veins of the movement. Foreign operatives were briefed of our plight and sought to enlist us into aiding their country's interests against our captors. We were to be used as pawns in their war against America. In the first 3 decades of the Black Revolution, from the 1930s, so in the 60s, it was easy for the intellectuals like Dr. Angela Davis to pick up the works of Chairman Mao as revolutionary model against the crumbling, powerful Babylon. We were viewed as desperate and ignorant by Red China and the warlords of Japan. They knew we wanted to be free of America. They knew that America had did what America had did and was still doing to us. They knew we would follow. At the same time, J. Edgar Hoover was working his magic on us with his infamous Co and Tel Pro. So our movement was plagued from without and within. Madness was created like a Frankenstein's monster we became. We were turned in on ourselves. This was the magic that caused Malcolm to be killed. And don't forget, on top of all this is the Pakistani mystic Master Farad Muhammad, who hypnotized Sister Clara Muhammad, wife of Elijah, who introduced the mystic man to her husband. Thus is the history of the infamous Nation of Islam. Even before that, this man and others like him had mystified men like Noble Drew Ali, father of the modern black Moors. Even today, they argue and kill over who is right and who is wrong, not realizing they all are connected to one invisible thread, which is someone other than their own kind. In the midst of all this madness, Malcolm was a true believer in the core belief of the movement. He was a true believer in the truth and light which lie dormant in the darkness of time. He was the one chosen to bring the world's eyes to the Master, and all others wanted to be like him, wanted to walk in his shoes. The puppet masters knew this and used it to get rid of the chosen one, and he accepted his destiny and was demised. So we have always had much working against us. This is why we have so far failed. envy, jealousy, and greed. We were not spiritual beings. We were not Christ-like. We were not wise or called by God like Muhammad. Only Malcolm was chosen. He became he became too powerful in the eyes of American powers and in the eyes of his own people, who saw him as taking money out of their pockets, so to speak. You're now in tune. On the one, the force itself. At this time, we call it the Master Blaster Jamming. This has been part 2 of this discourse, the Brotherhood of St. Malcolm. Stay tuned for part 3. And you remember, you are now in tune. On the one, the force itself. At this time, we call it the Master Blaster Jamming. We find this story in Pakistan's folklore as we trace the origin of the mystic Master Farad Muhammad. In 1177, a child named Usman Marwari was born into an upper-class family in Marwand, a small town in Azerbaijan. He was educated in the Sufi and Dervish tradition and was a highly regarded religious leader. By his early 20s, he was a highly regarded religious leader, i.e., he joined the order of Khowar, an elite group of Sufis who gave up everything worldly to devote themselves to the propagation of Islam as he rose to prominence in the order. His name changed to Shabazz Khowar. A Khowar is a saint whose actions are believed to be directly commanded by God and are based on love and devotion of God. His mausoleum, the shrine of Lal Shabazz Khowar, attracts millions of Muslims every year. This was the mystic Sufic vibration placed on the nation of Islam by one Master Farad Muhammad, knowingly or unknowingly. Malcolm was the essence of that movement. His life illustrated the power of truth, which was at the heart of Malcolm's motivation. His life is a meditation for us all. Malcolm represented the righteous element of NOI. He took the name Malik el-Shabazz, the Khowar. Now, to the core of our little talk. So far, we have revealed to you a synopsis of the history of Black nationalist movement. We have revealed its oneness, its ups and downs, mostly its downfall, why it did not work, etc. In the spiritual science of Buddhism, there is something called the Eightfold Path. In Buddhism, the Eightfold Path is the achievement of nirvana, our oneness with life, nature, etc., emphasizing adherence to truth and moral values and comprising 8 aspects. These are right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. All void of envy, jealousy, and greed. Around 1865, the year Lincoln was assassinated, to the year 1930, time of the Black nationalist movement started, the Nation of Islam foremost, was about 65 years up from slavery. The concept of the Eightfold Path was not prevalent. It was not a prevalent tenet of the black nationalist movements, yet they borrowed much from the Eastern philosophies, and the motivation became greed, causing envy, jealousy, just the opposite of the Eightfold Path. Though the concept of the Nation of Islam was that of receiving the revelation from God in person, like Muhammad receiving the Quran in those days from the angel Gabriel. 90% of the actions of the movement was not holy. Many had no concept of it except by the little information that was introduced from the brothers, the men that came from the East, pimping or using the black people for their own causes. The original idea taught by the leader Elijah Muhammad was to create a sovereign state within the United States for all black people who would join them. Instead, as you can see, the results today, it turned out to be a family dynasty, a legacy now carried on by Louis Farrakhan. No one can deny this fact. Malcolm was killed because he was laying the groundwork for creating a blueprint for the revolution. He was cut down right before he was to address the General Assembly at the United Nations and bring the problems facing the black man of America before the nations of the world and the General Committee. America via J. Edgar Hoover did not want this bomb to explode on their paradise. We were not a recognized nation, but Malcolm had lobbied Egypt and China who would sponsor him there before the assembly. Through Malcolm and his shadow army, a revolution was being organized and carried out. Malcolm had made a deal with China, and this was a great concern to our country, America. Knowing the inner power struggle of the Nation of Islam, a mole had been planted at the highest security level of the nation, who also trained death row prisoners to assassinate Malcolm. These hired to be trained assassins would be protected, it was told them, upon mission completion. This operation did not go right. These trained assassins were tracked and killed by Malcolm's shadow army. The men who were locked up many years for the murder of Malcolm were men who were very close to him, but were not there the time of the murder. So we see the objective was to get rid of Malcolm and all who were his confidants, etc. This way the revolution was assured to be annihilated. From the inception to the demise of Malcolm, the Japanese played a great role in the mindset and direction of the nation. My objective here is to highlight the folly of black nationalism, which in the end will prove unfathomable black intergalacticalism. Now, I would like to show you the parallel movement to Nation of Islam, the black nationalism. At the same time, the nation was forming, an African king was being crowned. Old Marcus Garvey prophesied of this event. We call Garvey the father of black nationalism, true or proper. All the black nationalists looked to Africa and its new king. Like Malcolm, who would become spokesman of Elijah, and his mentor Farad, one Bob Marley, a musician prophet, rose to sing the message of the king, saying, "We free our people with music." A new movement was born parallel to the Nation of Islam, but in the end we shall meet. This parallel was truly a movement of peace. No one was killed for disagreeing with the king, etc. You are now in tune. On the one, the force itself, at this time, we call it the Master Blaster jamming. Many has asked me over the years, why do not the government tell us what is going to happen, what is going on, etc. They have been telling you, but you have not been believers. To stop panic, they allow this communications tool they have, Hollywood, to deliver the message esoterically. It will happen just like they said it would. They have said it already. This is called the way of the Illuminati. We have currently, at the start of year 2011, we see thousands of birds falling from the sky as millions of fish die in the oceans. 81 years ago, we did not see this. We did not hear of pole shift in 2012 and the coming of the Anunnaki of Nibiru, which I am a believer. We read in the news that the magnetic poles have shifted towards Russia and that airports in Tampa, Florida had to move and repaint the numbers on runway because of this magnetic shift to correspond to compass readings of incoming planes. Many who do not want the public to see the connection of these events with 2012 debunk all notions of such. That current events are signs of 2012. In the year 2003, about 8 years ago, a movie was copywritten called Khowar, C-O-R-E. Check that movie. Which points to this day exactly written. It's about the shifting of the poles and the magnetic fields, bringing down crows out of the sky and planes missing the runways, just like down in Tampa they had to reroute, realign runways. Check it out for yourself. So we find in the Rastafari movement, what are we to do at this time? I ask you who will to help me in this endeavor of the Master Blaster jamming by sending me donations of any amount. Contact me via email, messenger, etc. that we discuss this transaction, that I inform you how to address me and send your donations. For many years now, 29 to be exact, I knew this day would come, and I have been putting this message out via my over 365 videos at YouTube and my website at unn13.com. I need help. I need your help that I would be able to maintain and travel if necessary to make contacts as soon as possible to pull this endeavor off in time. If anyone would like to join me, let me know. We must save ourselves. We cannot wait on the government, etc. It's time for action now. No more talking, no more debating, arguing about what you think you know, etc. It's time to prepare. It's time to save ourselves. Many things we have talked about will happen this year. One thing must happen, and we must implement our safety net by any means necessary. You're now in tune. On the one, the force itself at this time, we call it the Master Blaster jamming.